Greetings, I am SupernovaBlade, and welcome to the 4th Stories in History SupernovaBlade video. For this episode, I decided to talk about something that was in the back of my mind for quite a bit of time. I honestly have no idea how it ended up in the back of my mind for so long, but it did. So, for this episode, I'm going to talk about something I really hate: being sick. I am not usually someone who gets sick all that often, or at least, nowadays I usually don't. I did get sick way more often when I was younger, but when you're young, you make bad decisions when you're sick, since a lot of the time, or at least for me, you don't know better. However, when I do get sick, I just can't function like a normal human being. At all. Additionally, when I get sick, I basically drop everything and do whatever I can to get some medicine. Seems kind of funny to think about how, when I was younger, I would refuse to take any sort of medicine, but there was one story that stuck out to me about one incident, which I'll explain later. It doesn't matter if it's just a small stomach virus, a clogged nose, or watery eyes. I sense it, it's my mission to get rid of it. Ever since I was young, being sick had sucked. What I personally hate is getting sick on holidays. For what I can remember, I have gotten sick on Valentine's Day, I've gotten sick on Thanksgiving, and I've even gotten sick on Christmas, which I'll explain later. And, of course, the worst of all, I once got sick on my own birthday. These all sucked even though many of them happened such a long time ago. I also really hate getting sick during vacations and other major events. Now, onto the story portion of the video. Before I talk about that, something came to my head while I was writing this script that was something that my mother told me a number of years back when I was still in preschool, where I legitimately said I would rather throw up than stop drinking milk. Basically, when I was very, very young, I could not live without drinking milk, and I almost refused to drink anything else except for a little bit of water. No juice, no lemonade, no soda, nothing else. This seems kinda weird, since people who know me now know I cannot live without water, and if I am somewhere that doesn't have bottled water or any other type of healthy water to drink, I will flip out. However, I would like to touch upon one more thing before moving on. I understand that you need to drink plenty of water when you have stomach viruses to make sure they become better, but damn, I hate drinking water when having a stomach virus. Oh my god, I feel like that although helping me a little, it causes me to swallow way too much phlegm, which I try my hardest to not do because it only makes me feel worse. I hate it. Okay, now that that side tangent is done, let's get back to the story. Being sick on holidays suck, like I mentioned before. So, let's talk about that. I'm going to start with the Valentine's Day story, which happened when I was in 8th grade. This one isn't really something really memorable, but what was memorable, for all the wrong reasons, was the aftermath. Also, I'm going to say a warning that the story contains a little bit of visceral topics and a suicide mention. So, if you don't feel comfortable with hearing about such topics, please skip to this timestamp that will be shown in the video. Anyway, so, when I was in the 8th grade, I got sick on Valentine's Day. The sickness had originally started on the 12th of February of that year, but over the course of 2 days, it built into a larger sickness complete with not being able to have dairy, not being able to fall asleep, not being able to breathe, the whole shebang. As a result, I ended up staying home from school, which I rarely did when I was in grade school, by the way. Dreadfully, on that same day, it was found that my sister was in debt due to other circumstances, and my brother walked outside. I assumed he went out for a walk. Later, I found out that he legit walked out without sufficient layers and no shoes on into the bitter, cold February night to try to freeze himself to death. But this was also during a time where everyone's mental state severely declined. It was truly the worst Valentine's Day I've ever witnessed. What felt worse was that the same week, I had a major visit to a university for a movie-making seminar and ended up being slightly sick for quite a bit of time. Yet, despite that sickness that I got on Valentine's Day, the worst thing that happened to me that month happened exactly a week later. I thought I was freed from this sickness only for it to give me a knuckle sandwich. One morning, I had a day off of school for professional development, quote unquote, and as a result, I stayed home. I ate some toast for breakfast. But when I got back to my bedroom, my stomach felt really weird and I swear it was getting worse by the passing minute. I thought, am I about to throw up or have diarrhea? I raced to the bathroom, and I'm just going to make a long story short. I did both. At once. My vomit got into the porcelain throne, no issue, but it was the diarrhea that went where it wasn't supposed to. Onto the walls, and slightly onto the floor. It was honestly one of the most uncomfortable and disgusting things I have ever witnessed. Now for the two Thanksgiving stories, which happened 12 years apart. One happened when I was in first grade, and the other happened my first year of college. I don't know much about the first story since I was, well, 6, but here's some more insight about me. Until I was about 12 or 13 years old, I refused to eat any sort of meat. No chicken, no turkey, no pork, no beef, nothing. That might explain why I'm so skinny. If my Minecraft skin was more accurate to my IRL appearance, my skin would be an Alex skin, not a Steve skin. It seems weird to think about since I can't live without eating chicken nowadays. There's another visceral story coming up, so I just wanted to give a heads up, even though it's not as visceral as the last one. Anyway, so it was Thanksgiving and I was at my grandparents' house, as we did back then. My parents, being parents, they said, "Oh, you should eat some of the turkey." And oddly enough, I gave in. Cue a piece of turkey going into my mouth, only for vomit to come out of my mouth and land on my grandmother's floor. Sorry. Now for the second Thanksgiving story, which was not all that bad compared to some of the stories I mentioned earlier in this video. But I will mention it later since it is relevant for something I'm going to talk about later. However, this sickness was potentially due to a long car ride and potential dehydration. Yet, this time I legitimately forced myself to vomit in order to get rid of the bacteria from the sickness. Like I mentioned earlier, I would do anything to get myself to be unsick, per se, and sometimes I make myself suffer a lot to get it to happen. This one involved me sticking a rubber thing to touch the back of my tongue to make myself gag enough to get the mucus out. I forgot exactly what the rubber thing was. It was probably something like a toothbrush. That is to say that what I do might not be recommended by various medical sources. This story didn't really happen on Thanksgiving, but the sickness spewed throughout the week, since it technically happened on the Sunday before it. I mostly spent the rest of that time that I could remember for that week just eating apple cinnamon fruit bars, applesauce, and graham crackers. Now for the Christmas story. Being sick on Christmas is terrible, and it was made worse by other factors when it happened to me. I loosely brought up this story in the Thoughts on Christmas video, but I will elaborate. One Christmas, more specifically, the one where I was in 5th grade, I got really badly sick and needed to take a Tylenol. Except, since I suck at taking cough syrup since it tastes like death, my mother mixed it with some milk and I came to call it Tylenol milk. Basically, if you do this in your home, which I don't know why you would, it just tastes like you mixed milk and Tylenol. Nothing much. I was not even sure if it helped me at all. If it was just a bad cough, it probably was doing something, but again, this was almost a decade ago, so I can't completely say that all the information is valid, because in reality, it is kind of fuzzy. This was also the Christmas where I got yelled at by my dad. So, like I said in the last video, thanks Dad. And now, let's talk about getting sick on my birthday. There's not much to this story because it happened when I was in kindergarten. All I remember is that it was Wear Red Day at my elementary school, since that was our school's color. All I remember other than that was having to stay in bed all day and throwing up the day after my birthday. I don't remember anything else. Moving on. I have gotten sick so many other times, but most of them do not stand out much and or aren't important to this video's topic. The two most recent bad sicknesses I had gotten was the flu this past November that was tamed by medication and mint frosted chocolate cupcakes. And the other was last August when I got the C19. Also, if you have a stomach virus of any kind, and you have mint or anything mint flavored, it will help. I promise you. Anyway, so now for the other topic I was going to talk about, recording videos while sick. I have done it a few times. 3 were in the same series. So let me start with the first one I was able to recall. The first was for a video from 2016 that I since then deleted called Long Hypixel Videoathon Part 3 or 4. I can't remember which one. Where I played every Hypixel minigame I could, but each part had a different game. Anyway, for one of those 2 episodes, I decided to play Smash Heroes, but I had a really bad sore throat when I was recording it, so I rarely ever spoke in the video. Don't bother looking for the video, I already deleted it years ago. The other 3 were all in Smash episodes. The first was episode 12 in March of 2020. I mentioned it in the video, even though the audio of the episode is very quiet, but the sickness didn't get too severe. The second was episode 17, which I recorded and uploaded in the same week as the second Thanksgiving story. But I really wanted to get the video out when I could, and I was going to be having a very busy week the following week, so I didn't want to record it then. That's because that week was my exams. I legit recorded the video between 2 of my online classes in a very small time frame with almost no room for error. Now, the last Smash episode, I'm not really going to say I was sick when this happened, because in reality, it was just because I burnt my throat on a mozzarella stick, and it didn't completely recover with cold water or sleep by the time I recorded it. That being episode 21, which is kind of why the audio came up kind of bleh when I actually had uploaded it. Anyway, so with all that, this is where I'm going to end the video. If you enjoyed this video, you can like, comment, or subscribe, the whole shebang. Only if you want to, of course. I'm not forcing you to do any of that. It's your choice. Anyway, this has been SupernovaBlade, and goodbye.